crappie section. Sorry about that. I had too many screens open.
It's all good, man. Hey, we get through technical difficulties. We've learned that the last couple of days. So.
Oh, yeah. But we've got a sort of a gem with us tonight. Frank Haidusek. He's I was looking at his website earlier today. He's in his first 22 events. I believe he's finished in the top 10 in 15 of them. So let's keep that in a little bit of perspective when we're talking bass fishing. You know, these guys finishing so high for a couple tournaments. All right. You ready to bring him on there, Rob?
Yeah, man. Let's bring old Frank on. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I can always learn more about crappie fishing for sure.
That's right. All right. Good evening, Frank. How are you?
Pretty good. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Doing well, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. You know, it's kind of skeptical when you reached out and what does some bass guys want me to do on their show? But no, I'd love to talk about fishing, so definitely privileged to be on here.
I appreciate you, man.
Yes. No, I was telling the folks, you know, I was looking at your website and 15 top 10s and 22 tournaments, and you know, before the show, you're at around 50 or over 50% in cashing checks for tournaments, which
yes,
that's Hall of Fame material there.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of great anglers, you know. I mean, you know, we've had some anglers before finish top 10 about every tournament they fished. But no, it's pretty good time. I'm happy where I'm at. You know, crappie fishing, you're not gonna, well, it's the same as bass. You're not gonna make a living just fishing tournaments. Yep. You know, I think we're starting to see companies start looking at the crappie side. You know, yes. I mean, all the surveys and reports you see is there's actually more people in the country that fish for crappie than bass. But, you know, I mean, bass obviously has the name as far as tournaments and TV and all that stuff. So, you know, hopefully we can get a little piece of that pie.
Definitely.
Yeah. One of our fans says, "Oh, Frank, don't even know. Many of those crappie guys feel like they're graduated and moved on from bass."
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the running joke is, you know, it's too easy to catch bass, so you know, trying to catch crappie. But no, I've always grown up, you know, just fishing for stuff. So you know, even today I still catch bass while I'm out crappie fishing, catfish, walleye, you know, pretty much anything.
Yep. Yeah, that's, you know, fishing's fishing.
Yeah.
You know, as far as enjoyment, if you enjoy fishing, you enjoy fishing for just about anything.
Yep.
So what separates an excellent crappie fisherman from the average going out and just a grilling fisherman, you know, one that goes out and gets dinner, you know?
Obviously it'd be you know, it's the same in any sport. You know, it's time practicing your craft and trying to perfect it. So, you know, there's you know, I still have work to do. You know, I've been tournament fishing for going on 11 years now. You know, there's things that if you practice wrong, you're going to do wrong in the tournament. You know, especially now with the advancements of forward-facing sonar, you know, I still cannot get on the fish and drop that bait right in front of its face the first time. And a lot of times, especially with a spooky panfish type of fish, you know, you put that bait behind them, they feel it and they're taking it off because they don't know if it's a catfish or a bass trying to eat them. So, you know, it's stuff that I got practice on, but, you know, being out there on the lake day in and day out is, you know, what makes people successful trying to figure out the fish.
Yeah. Nice. It's a nice little background you have there.
Yeah, it's not too bad. You know, my wife tried to get me to do this for the longest time, and we bought this house a couple years ago, and you know, finally had a room to make an office. You know, with the kids getting older and moving out, so you know, I figured I'd go ahead and make her happy and put them up. But
Yeah.
they've been sitting in the corner. I mean, I still got my plaques laying on the floor. You know, they've been sitting there for over 10 years now.
Dang.
Yeah, I was the same way. I like with mine. My wife wanted me to put mine up. I'm like, no. Like,
Yeah.
She goes, you should be proud of what you do. You're confident. So I'm like, okay, I'll put them up.
Yeah.
Barking Ruger says when they ask Frank how many tournaments he's won, the answer is most of them.
Yep.
No,
Absolutely.
Man, I think if you talk to a lot of crappie fishermen, it's hard to win a tournament. You know, it's the same thing with bass. I mean, you know, me growing up, you know, I idolized KVD, like the determination and what he done on the water, still do. And you know, I try to put in that effort, and you know, he's got what 27 wins out of how many tournaments he's fished.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, it's when you look at it, it's such a small percentage. But you know, I mean, obviously that's the game plan going out every time is trying to win that tournament, and you know, hopefully you get lucky and do it.
For sure.
Definitely.
Do they? I'm not real familiar with your tournament trails and stuff like that. Do you guys ever get up north or mostly in the South and Midwest?
Yeah, it's mostly in the Midwest to South.
Okay.
You know, and it's all dependent on your CVBs with your towns and stuff. You know, I try to educate anglers on that. Like, you know, you always hear, why don't you have a tournament here? You know, they don't realize that, you know, somebody's got to pay for it, and getting them to pay for it. You know, there's just a lot of lakes and towns around the Midwest and down south that will put up the money to host a tournament.
Okay. Now, are you guys allowed to use live bait, or is it strictly artificial?
No, we're allowed to use live.
Okay.
You know, the advancements of tournaments, you know, I mean, it went from, you know, single pulling to, you know, spider rigging, which is, you know, most states allow you to have at least 4 pulls per person. So it'd be 8 pulls and a rod holder up front, and you're pushing the baits. A lot of those guys love using minnows on one of the hooks, and then a jig and a minnow on another one. You know, and, you know, we're not a big time sport right now. So to get participation, I think the trails have to use live bait to get some people to show up. I'll have them on my boat, but there's a lot of times where, you know, I spend $50 in minnows and I tried 2 of them during a tournament.
Yeah. And Barking Ruger says local trophy shop doesn't have an overstock shelf. They have a waiting on Frank shelf.
I appreciate it, guys. Yeah, there's some young anglers out there that have you know, gotten in or you know, learned from forward facing sonar that's mastered their crafts down pretty good. And you know, it's us older guys have to play catch up and get some luck behind us. You know, like the the one in the center there, that's a classic trophy I won in Lake Hartwell. First time there. I'm not a black crappie fisherman. I'm not a clear water fisherman. And I actually looked on Google, found 3 dirty pockets of water back in creeks, and I won that classic off of 2 of those.
Oh, wow.
You know, I mean, everybody said you're going to have to cast. You're going to have to cast clear water 60 feet out. You know, you're going to catch them down. You can't get close to them. And I ended up finding them in dirty, muddy water, and they acted just like white crappie. So it worked in my favor there.
Cool.
Nice. It's always nice when things pan out for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you did bring up forward-facing sonar. I know a lot. That's, you know, we talked before the show. That's a big thing in the bass world now. Everybody's up in arms about it. They're either for it or against it. And, like I'd said, it's a tool.
Yep.
All the fishermen, not all, but a lot of the fishermen who use it say the same thing. It's a tool.
Yep.
So, and a lot of people are saying that it originated with the crappie fisherman.
Yeah, I would say, well, I mean, obviously, it come out around 2018.
Yep.
With the Panoptics, and they were quick to update it to the original transducers you see today in 2019. That's when I first got mine, and yeah, I'd say probably 90% of your buyers were crappie fishermen. You didn't really see bass fishermen have it. I don't know exactly when Alton Jones Jr. got his or his dad. I know they've had it for a while. Seen a tournament where he was trying to catch a fish on the bottom and ended up being like a 2-pound black crappie. So, I know he's been using it quite a bit. Mike Menendez, a couple other guys. But for the most part, yeah, I mean, last year it's been pretty new to the bass world, but yeah, with anything, I think something. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know what it is. Same thing with the Minn Kota or the Humminbird 360. I mean, before that come out, we crappie fishermen were using that left and right. Because we fish a lot of structure, and anytime we can find structure anywhere, I credit that with getting third place at the national championship in 2018. I had the 360 and the Ultrex put on the Wednesday before the tournament, and just to be able to see all that underwater cover that I would have went by before and be able to catch fish off of it, to get a top 3 with my nephew.
Nice.
Yeah, we noticed a lot of bass professionals on off season. They'll go crappie fishing. I fished with a young guy, Jack Daniel Williams, last year on a Toyota, and he said he learned a lot from crappie fishing on the off season. He went through some crappie tournaments, but great guy. I mean, he did really well. Yeah,
we had Shaw Grigsby fished with a crappie guy in the Mr. Crappie tournaments at the Red River in Louisiana and at Table Rock in Missouri. And he was at Red River. We were locked up together, and we were sitting there talking, and he was just amazed at all the equipment we have on our boat. Being a small panfish and not being a good payout. We had 2 or 3 graphs on the front. Yeah. Now we've got crappie brakes on the back to help slow us down, which I'm seeing some of the bass guys start doing now. Ben Milliken's starting to push that.
Yep.
And I mean, forward face sonar, definitely the first, I'd say at least 3 years, it was strictly 90% crappie fishermen that was buying all that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing technology for sure, and it keeps advancing. I keep hearing rumors that stuff's coming down the pike, so it's just going to get a little better and a little better, a little more advanced.
Yeah. I mean, there's no telling what they already have. I think Garmin's probably holding out on that 34 for quite some time.
Yep.
And then just decided to put it out once the other 2 known companies put out their forward-facing sonars.
Yeah. Oh. What is there a big difference in crappie fishing than bass fishing?
Yeah, I mean, there is at times, of course, though overall they're pretty similar.
Okay.
Your bigger crappie are going to be by themselves a lot of times. Whether it's in it could be in timber, but your bigger crappie, you're going to be at least either above or below your smaller fish. You'll be able to tell that they're separated. I think bigger crappie tend to roam around a lot more. And I think a lot of times, they will pack up together in certain areas. I mean, they're going to be looking for the best areas to get food, probably just like any of your big bass. Um, I'd say they probably don't sit up in the shallows as much as bass might, but you can find crappie up shallow year round. Home Lake and Truman Lake in Missouri, we'd go right before Christmas and put in the back of creeks and, bobber fish to the bank. And, we'd catch fish in 2 feet of water in Missouri with it, in December being 30 degrees out.
Dang.
But I mean, they are a predator fish. So, I think that's, I try to incorporate some of the things I see on your bass tournaments and incorporate that into crappie fishing as well.
Okay. Barking Uber says it's old tech, but newly available delivery systems.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you typically use or primarily use spinning gear or?
No, I use primarily long fishing poles, so anywhere from 13 to 18 feet. That's the thing with crappie fishing. Before it was spider rigging, so a lot of guys would use 16-foot poles, coming out of the front of their boats, keep the baits away from the boat from spooking the fish. So we don't have the limit on what our rod lengths can be.
Cool.
And it was at the Crappie Masters National Championship at Grenada, Mississippi in 2019. That was debate was, is it going to be the spider trollers or is it going to be the one pullers? And I know at least the top 8 spots in the championship were all one pullers. We finished 8th place. And, with forward facing sonar and one pull, I mean, you're targeting a single fish at a time. So, I mean, in that aspect, it's just like bass, I mean, there's no point in using more than one rod at a time. We're allowed to, we're all team sports, 2 people. So, we could have, like I said, up to 8 poles. Some guys fish 2 people at a time. Some guys will hold the net while the other one fishes. And then, depending on how the team makeup is, there's a lot of father-son teams out there where usually the son's fishing and the father's holding the net the whole time. But yeah. So I'm using anywhere from, like I said, 13 to 18-foot poles, depending on what lake I'm fishing and whether I'm having to chase fish around a lot.
Gotcha.
Frank, do you normally drive your baits to the fish using your trolling motor and forward-facing sonar?
Yes, that's where I say I need to practice a lot because, I want to get it down to where I can get up on the fish and drop that bait and it's coming right in front of its face. But unfortunately, I'm not that good yet. So yes, a lot of times I'm dropping the bait and I have to push it in front of them. A lot of times those fish are swimming too. And we see there's a lot of times if we're pushing that bait to the fish, if we don't get that bait up high enough, it'll actually spook that fish and it'll take off. So, there's a lot of times we try pitching. That's kind of what I did at the beginning is I would like to find that fish and then get it within 20 feet. And with a 13-foot pull or longer, I'd have enough line out to where I could pitch it out. I'd hold the line in my other hand and pitch about 20 feet out and then try to get that bait to pendulum in front of that fish's face. So it's no different than pitching in bass, but except, a lot of times we already have that extra line in our offhand.
Okay.
Gotcha. You ever do the shooting docks? I know a lot of guys do the shooting docks, shoot that jig up under there. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I love shooting docks. We don't get to do it enough. A lot of our tournament lakes really don't have docks that'll produce the big fish. We've had tournaments at Lake of the Ozarks where I have caught some decent fish pre-fishing under docks, And then usually by the time tournament day, it's usually cloudy, and those fish will move out from underneath the docks. And so can't say I've never fished docks during a tournament, but that hasn't been a focus. But yeah, we have shorter rods for dock shooting, 1 pieces and 2 piece and 1 piece for casting. There's guys out there that will 90% of the time strictly cast to the fish because they're like Alabama River. They're so used to fishing stumps and brush and black crappie, staying off of them and casting to them that that's what they're an expert in. I've been an expert growing up around Truman Lake and having all the timber you'd want, jigging the timber before all these electronical advancements came out. So, we just put a bait next to the tree and lower it down and lift it up, and hopefully we got a bite and hopefully there's a fish on it. If not, we would move to the next one.
Yep. Hey, Nick Dane wants to know what's your key to finding crappie on the lake?
We always try to look up at the furthest away from the dam, the most dirty, fertile water we can find. Usually for us produces a lot bigger fish. But I mean, if I'm looking at my Navionics app beforehand, I'm looking for a creek channel that's going to have, that channel is going to be pretty close to the bank. So I have multiple options. I have your inside flat, I have your bank side flat, and then, I have the creek channel, I have a point, I have all that right next to each other. That's usually where I'm going to start and try to find them. Obviously if the lake has timber, that's what I'm looking for. If not, stumps, maybe, scan and try to find some brush piles if it doesn't have much structure on it. You'll see a lot of these lakes have a bunch of stake beds and, man-made brush or even regular brush put into the lakes. So a lot of that stuff will be key at times to find these fish. They're going up, wintertime moving up, resting up around your secondary creek channels, around the flats, and then they go up and spawn. Then they come back to those areas to rest up, and then they'll maybe get out of that creek channel. Some crappie live in the same areas pretty much year round, but we've noticed our bigger fish are majorly up as far away from the dam as you can get. So
yeah, talking about fish attractors in Tennessee, down in Douglas Lake, they have these big concrete culvert pipes. They have a bunch of holes in them, and the wildlife puts them out, and works pretty good.
Yeah, there's all different kinds of things. I mean, back in Truman Lake in Missouri, I mean, they get some pallets and get some 1x1s and nail them onto the pallets, and you just got big giant pallets sitting out there, and those crappie will sit in there and try to ambush bait fish. Obviously a bait fish will use it, and then it's a resting spot for the fish too. I know catfish love them.
Yep.
A lot of times you'll see catfish in them.
Yeah, they feel secure around it. They got a place to hide and feed, so it's got everything they need. So definitely.
Do you can you tell what type of fish is down there with your sonar?
Yeah, I'm usually scanning about 60, 70 feet out, so sometimes you can't tell at that part. But as they get closer and you dial in more, you can see the shapes. You get enough practice on the water, you'll start seeing what's what. Obviously a round fish, most likely is going to be a crappie. Now there's your carp. A lot of times carp will spook about 20 feet away. There is times like I just had a tournament a couple weekends ago at Hugo in Oklahoma, and there was a bunch of carp floating around, and they weren't scared of anything. They look like crappie because, at certain angles, they're pretty round. Once you get close enough and they separate, you'll be able to see the fork in their tail, or you can see a little piece on the bottom. I don't know if it's their fins or what it is, but Before when I first started using it, you could see the scales on carp. You could see that sonar bouncing off their scales, and you definitely knew that was a carp at that time. You have your gar. If your gar's pointed right at you, they look like a big crappie. And I fish for plenty of gar, and it comes up to eat my jig, and then all of a sudden it gets 4 feet long. But I think the key with forward-facing sonar is figuring out the different species movements. A lot of catfish and drum, they will swim down. Their nose is pointed down while they're swimming, where a crappie is either going to be level or they're going to be pointed up. Because crappie feed up. Catfish, sometimes catfish looks like it's got a little ball on their tail while they're swimming around. Of course, your walleye is going to be longer. Your bass is going to be longer and more blocky. And then any of your big movement fish, you'll be able to see them. You'll be able to see them doing that on the forward facing sonar. You're like, that kind of looks wavy or glitchy, and crappie. Granted, they swim, but they're pretty round and stuff, so they don't really have as much movement when they're swimming like that. Especially if you're fishing timber. If you're fishing timber and you see something doing like that, if outside of spawning time, that's probably going to be a carp or catfish or something that's trying to either eat something off the tree or trying to, I don't know, scratch its face or do something. It's just not a natural movement for a crappie. And I think that's the biggest key on distinguishing fish is getting used to what they look like in the water. Like I told some guys at the fishing show this weekend, I said, if you see a fish nose down swimming and you catch it and it's a drum, and you go after the next fish doing the same thing, it's a drum, then most likely everything else after that's going to be a drum.
Yeah.
So.
Nice.
Yep. What's your favorite crappie lake?
Obviously Grenada, Mississippi. It's home of the 3-pound crappie. Here a couple of years ago, we had, I think, 7 or 8 4-pound crappie weighed in. So, these fish are, 17 to 18 inches long, and they're busting almost 4 pounds.
Dang.
It's a great fight, and that's what these fish. It's a shallow water lake. These fish will get up in a foot of water when it's spawn time. Back pretty much coming out of the water, and so they're used to swimming. They're I guess those fish down there would be the close to bass that you can get, and when they hit, they just take off. They'll try to dig and they'll try to eat that bait. They get mad, but just the amount of fish that you can catch, possibility of over 3 pounds, it's amazing.
Wow.
So that's obviously the best lake, really. But we're seeing, Lake Fork in Texas have big crappie. But like Eufaula, we just had some tournaments here this year, and in Oklahoma, it's 100-something thousand acres, big lake, and we realize there's so many crappie in that lake, and there's so many good sized crappie over 2 pounds. It's amazing. You can pretty much go anywhere on that lake and catch a 2-pound crappie.
Wow.
Matter of fact, there was yesterday a guy there caught a 3.44 crappie, and I think another guy caught one just over 3 pounds. Here in Kansas, we have some special lakes. They're not that big, but they produce 3-pounders as well.
Man, that's crazy. Yeah, I used to go to Wasp Lake a lot with my dad growing up, and we'd go crappie fishing. That's a pretty cool little lake here in North Alabama.
Yeah, my buddy Shiloh Sheppel, he guides down there now.
Okay.
So he moved from Illinois. Him and his wife moved down there, and he's been guiding on there. So yeah, he loves it.
Dave Ottman says Enid Lake, just south of Grenada, is is good as well.
Yeah. You just have they call it the Big Four. Since last year they drained Arkabutla, so it's nothing right now until they get the dam fixed on it. But I fished Sardis this last year for the first time. I think I got 6th place there, but it was summertime Mississippi, and we're catching our fish in 5 to 8 feet of water, suspended a couple of feet down, just roaming. So, I don't know I don't think bass probably do that in the summertime. I think they probably head for deeper water, but crappie, you'll find them shallow year round.
What's your typical setup for rod and line and stuff like that?
Oh, I wish I had one here. Nowadays, typically, I used to be a big jig fisherman starting out. That's what I caught them on. 1/4 ounce weight. 3-inch bait, and it just seems like these fish are either getting used to us or getting more spooky. That we started downsizing, so now I'm running, usually a 16-ounce jig head with about a 2-inch bait, and we end up putting bobber stoppers and then a weight above, foot to 1.5 feet above on our line, so that we got the weight to catch fish in deeper water, or when we're chasing fish. You try to chase fish 1.5 miles and put a 16-ounce jig head in there. That jig head's going to be probably on top of the water by the time you get done with it. So, that's a lot of the weight above the bait or above the jig is strictly to get that jig down there. There's guys that have gone down to 64th hand ties and stuff. I don't even know what size of hook that would be, but I actually used one on Del Hollow in Kentucky Lake catching black crappie, and I was like, I don't know if I can catch a crappie with this little thing. I mean, it was probably, I don't know if you can see that. I mean, it was smaller than my fingernail.
Yep.
But I was catching black crappie with it, but we had to have a weight above it, or it'd take 2 hours just to get down 10 feet.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like with me, they're like, no, you need to use an 1/8 ounce weight and this. And I'm like, I'm trying to get 50 feet down. I don't want to sit here for 2 hours trying to do this.
Yeah.
So, Rick Amato wants to know, what's your daily limit?
It's all dependent. Here in Kansas is a 50 fish per person statewide.
Okay.
The main lake I guide on, it's 20 crappie a person, no size limit. There's some lakes like around Topeka and Lawrence, Clinton Lake and Perry Lake. They're 15 a person, and they got to be over 10 inches. So it's all depending on where you go. I think Oklahoma's 37 a person.
That's a weird number.
That is.
Yeah. There's a reason why they had that number, but I can't remember what it is now. But
now, are all your, I won't say all because there's always the one-offs, but most of your tournaments are 5 fish limit per team?
It used to be 7 fish per team.
Okay.
But now both the national trail, or 2 of the national trails went to 5 fish. Trying to conserve the fish a lot better. I mean, crappie are a lot more finicky than bass. Staying in the live well 8 hours a day, and then we usually bring them up in a 25 quart cooler or bigger. They get stressed out. Biologists say most likely doesn't matter how healthy they look, they're probably going to die once you put them back in the water. So. 100 team field, if they catch their 7 a day, that's 700. We'll lower it to 5 fish per person. That's 500. So we're at least saving 200 fish, not having to spend time in a live well and going through the weigh-in process.
Yeah.
Yep. The bass tournaments did that during COVID when we had to fish in the summer. they went to a 3 bass limit. So they did that in bass tournaments as well
Yeah.
this summer.
Do they now? You have to keep your fish alive as well.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
We had one tournament trail there for a while that you could weigh in one dead fish for a quarter-pound penalty. But that trail's since gone on to I think it's a 3-hour big fish type weigh-in.
Okay.
So yeah, now the 3 trails that remain is you have to keep your fish alive. So I mean, we're trying to baby our fish. You know, we got clips, weight clips on them.
Yep.
You know, we put the G juice in it. We try to keep that water around 64 degrees. Yeah, I mean that's one part of the stressful part of the tournament fishing is just keeping your fish alive.
Definitely.
Rick says Florida is 10-inch and a 25 limit.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, here in Kansas, I mean, you have different limits and size limits depending on which lake you're fishing. But you know, when I lived in Manhattan, Kansas, up by Kansas State University, that lake up there was 50 a person, no size limit. Yeah, so you can go up there. You know, I mean, I did at some of the smaller state lakes that had, you know, stunted crappie that really didn't get over 11 inches. And I'd be nearing my 50 and I'd call my wife to come down and jump in the boat and get 100 a day. And then, you know, I did that for 2 days and then clean them and brought them in my unit and we'd have a fish fry. So,
cool.
You know, that was good about that stuff. Plus, you know, hopefully it helped that lake, you know, maybe get some bigger size crappie in it. So, I mean, one day I took a buddy that never crappie fished from work and we caught 130 crappie in 3 hours.
Chew.
And he kept like 77 of them to eat.
It's not a bad lunch.
No.
But you weren't going to catch that many fish, you know, over 11 inches. So,
right.
It's good lake to get some food, but not a good lake to catch a decent sized crappie. Even though I have that lake, I actually caught a Master Angler Award crappie over 15 inches. So, but that's the only one I've ever caught or ever heard of. That was probably over 12 inches caught out of that lake.
Heard that. Yeah, talking about Del Hollow, I was fishing a bass tournament one time, and there was a little hump with them big grass stalks around it, and I threw like a 3.5 inch tube, and I caught two 2-pound crappies back to back. And I mean, they choked it. It was in there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I lipped them and had to get it out of their mouths. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, I mean, that's I was down there and finding some brush piles, and man, I thought I had the winning stringer sitting on this brush pile, and you know, it's 4-pound smallmouth.
Yeah,
sitting on them. I'm like, gosh, dang it, this is fun, but I need these big crappie.
Wrong tournament.
Yeah.
Well, they got a crazy smallmouth limit there too. They go, you only have 2 smallmouth, one 12 to 16 inches, and then one over 21. So of course you catch 19 and 20 inch just footballs, and it's like you can't throw them back. So.
Yeah, that sounds like a Lake Fork type deal.
Yeah.
Sounds like there's ones where you need a marshal out there to weigh them.
Just about it. They are fun though. You're right. They are fun.
Yeah. So your rods, I assume they're not going to be very stout. Are they more like an ultralight or perch rod or?
No. These rods nowadays, these long ones are. Most of them are either carbon fiber or they're graphite mixed with carbon fiber, and they're pretty sturdy. So, you know, you're catching 2+ pound crappie. The bend in it's going to be in the last quarter of the rod. You know, we wanted capability just in case to be able to boat flip these fish in there, and we want to get them in quick. You know, we're allowed to use nets if we want to get our fish. But, you know, there's certain times and places where you just don't have that capability. You know, if we're catching them shallow, I don't know how many fish have come off trying to get the fish to the side of the boat. They are paper mouths. But at the same time, I've tried to boat flip some fish and they, rip the hook out or whatever and land between where they came out and in front of my trolling motor. But no, we try to get the stout rod. I think the key with that is, tournament fishing, we want them in the boat as fast as we can. And then if you're fishing by yourself, you don't want to try to figure out reeling in some line and then you're trying to lift this fish and the rod tips, below your hand, almost touching the water. It's just harder to play with the fish and it's harder to get them in the net or the boat. So yeah, we've since a lot of these rod companies have come out with a stronger backbone rods. I guess medium heavy would probably be equivalent to some of the bass rods.
They flipped around on us.
Yeah, we lost him for a second.
There you go. There we go. Back to normal. Now on your line, do you use fluorocarbon or helps you detect a bite, like different colors, like a gold or anything, or just clear?
No, it's I'll have some rods with fluorocarbon, depending on the lake I'm at. I'm getting ready to fish this NCL championship, and it's actually going to be a different lake every day.
Yep.
So I believe the MLF was on day 2's lake. It's going to be Caney Creek down in Louisiana.
Yep.
And then Poverty Point's going to be the championship day. But Caney is supposed to be a pretty clear water lake, so I'm going to have clear fluorocarbon, probably 2 to 4 pound test line. But normally I'm running with braid, fishing all your dirty water. Doesn't matter what color it is. Braid's no stretch. So as soon as you feel, there's times where the fish just come up and put it in their mouth and you can feel that little slight pressure.
Yep.
And, a lot of times we'll wait or try to lift it up, see if they still have it before we set the hook. But yeah, I'm using mainly braid, but I'll have some 12 to 14 pound fluoro on some of my longer rods because one, if it's raining, we have micro guides on a lot of our rods.
Yep.
If it's raining, that braid will stick to your rod no matter what. So if we're trying to pitch and stuff and we pitch out and that braid, bounces off that rod, it's going to stick to that rod and it's almost like having a knot in it. Your bait's not going to go. So I'll have one of each just in case. And I think it's always good to have a fluorocarbon clear line on there, just in case the lake clears up. It out there at Lake Hartwell, it started clearing up by tournament day. And, I was trying to figure out if the second day, if it was going to be, too clear to, even get that close to the fish. So,
right.
And then fishing St. John's River, it's brackish water, but it's pretty clear water. It kind of looks like it's not very clear, but those black crappie can see it from a mile away. So I'm usually using clear fluoro down there.
Yeah, one thing I've run into braid too is I love pigeon flipping braid, but if you get it in a tree or lay down, that and you get a fish, it will saw into that wood, and then you get hung up. So you like, I have fluorocarbon, I have both. So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Now, do you use the braid and a fluorocarbon leader, or just straight fluorocarbon or straight braid?
Yeah, I do one for, I'll have either braid or fluoro. I try to keep it simple. I got enough stuff going on. I've tried to watch the videos on how to tie fluorocarbon on the braid and, this and that. And I'm like, I'm just going to do what I normally do. A lot of guys, especially if they're casting, they like doing, a loop knot. I pretty much do a polymer or, twist it around, stick it through and tighten it. Yep. I tie all my jigs straight to the line. It's worked for me. I try to keep it simple. Try not messing with other things that might mess up. Once you start putting other knots or tying stuff together, that's just another point of failure, in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
So
definitely.
I don't want that. I've learned, I was strictly braid for the longest time. And then I started using fluoro. And like I think at Table Rock a couple years ago for the Mr. Crappie tournament, I believe it cost us because we were catching fish around timber and using braid. I don't check my line. Well, I wasn't thinking about it with fluoro, and we had a pretty good fish, and it snapped the line. I believe it was probably because it was, it abrased it on a tree, over time and had a weak spot there. So,
Yep.
But now I check all that stuff when I'm fishing with fluoro.
Oh yeah.
Every
definitely.
fish, I'm running my hand down the line, just like the bass guys.
Yep. Feel that dick. Yep. Time to reach high.
Speaking of the bass guys, Barking Rugers says, I make it simple. I bolt flip everything. Flip stick life. He's a bass guy.
There you go.
All right, Frank. Well, we're about 40, little over 45 minutes in. We like to give you this opportunity to talk about some of your sponsors, partners, and stuff like that now. So,
yeah, that went by fast.
Yeah,
it did.
Yeah, we had obviously, I'm running the Camus CX21 that I got from my sponsor, Mid Kansas Marine. They got 2 locations here in Kansas, one in Andover and one in Hutchinson. They're family owned, great people. I'll tell you what, I've tested out their mechanic, their maintenance department with all the issues I've had this last year. But every time I'm home, they'll get me in, try to figure out the issue and get me back on the water. Well, beat down outdoors. I don't know if anybody watched the Opens, the Open this last weekend with Scott Martin getting the win. He was talking about some of the sponsors, and he's signed on with Beat Down Outdoors, fishing electronic mounts.
Yep.
And I've been with them since 2020. It's another local owned business in Missouri, Sedalia, Missouri. They started out 95% at least of their customers were crappie fishermen when they first started out, and now the bass guys are starting to see the capabilities of these mounts. You can have 2 graphs on the front of your boat. You can have them all the way down, then you can even raise them up 30 inches. For like us guys crappie fishing, standing up. Any of your guys' casters, if you're casting over your head, you got all your graphs right there in front of your face. They've since last year came out with a console mount. The console mount, if you go to Scott Martin, I think Mike McMillan, or God dang, I can't even think of his last name now.
McClellan?
Yeah, McClellan. There you go.
Yep.
You go look at his, they'll show you the different mounts and how they operate and work. They've been great sponsors for me. Obviously Powerful, work with Casey and the team every year. Those things, crappie fishing, we try to slow our boat down while we're chasing fish. So we had the paddles before somebody invented hey, let's put trolling motors on the back of these power poles so we can stop. The paddles are very key for a lot of us crappie fishermen in the past. And then the power poles still are because you get your brakes down, your trolling motors. Plus, I fish a lot of tournaments by myself or a lot of days with guide trips. And, I can just put it up next to the boat ramp, put the power poles down and hold me there and go get my truck. I did get sponsored this last year by Bass Pro and Cabela's, regional sponsorship. So, that's something that's pretty cool. Hopefully it'll continue to grow, and, hopefully I'll be, I don't know if I'll be the first one, but, hopefully I'll be a national sponsored crappie guy from Bass Pro and Cabela's at some point. K9 fishing products. That's the line I use. They make some great braid and fluoro, pretty much any size you want. My braid I'm using, it's a 9-strand, 25-pound braid. very strong, but still very small in diameter.
See, Rob, I told you.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Hey, winners know, right?
Yeah. I mean, when you're fishing muddy water, you're not worried about scaring fish, but still, you want the strongest as possible, just in case they get wrapped around the tree. There's been plenty of times where I've gotten a fish that's wrapped around a tree and worked it back out and stayed on the hook. Just signed on with Pro Built Jigs this season. They make an assortment line of crappie jigs and a couple different soft plastics. Crappie Monster. He just sold one of the tournament trails this year, but he does a fishing show and he makes plastics, and he has the Outlaw net, which extends I think from 6 feet to 4 feet to 12 feet long. Then he come out with a Pro Series net that's got a bigger basket, and it's when using longer rods, and at least the crappie ain't 10 pounds that we got to worry about. So we can have a longer net and try to get it under the fish sooner, be giving them less chance of getting off the hook. Trying to think here. Yeah, Mad Crappie Jigs. They also make jig heads. He sells in a couple stores in Texas, so it's just a one-man shop. He's a big boat driver out in the ocean for his primary job. But if you're down in Texas around Lake Fork and stuff, there's a couple tackle shops that sell them there. Sky's the limit. Fiberglass repair. Can't crappie fish around timber and stuff without having or knowing a great fiberglass repair person. This happens to be my brother-in-law's nephew. He worked for Tracker Marine, learned how to do all that stuff, still in his 20s. And I mean, he's meticulous at his job. He'll make sure it's done right. He gets discounts for military, law enforcement. And then, he's built his computer system where, it'll give him enough profits, and then, try to give you a great deal on it. And, he's been getting business from Kansas City and all different other areas that see that he's, not trying to price gouge him. And like I say, he did the bottom of nitro, and you couldn't even tell I ran over a bunch of stumps with it. I mean, it just shined just like it was brand new.
Can't beat that.
Of course, Spike It Outdoors. I've been with Spike It for, man, they used to make plastics. I've been with them, I think, probably my whole fishing career now. They've gone away just to doing the color customizations, and they still have their lure works for, people wanting to get into making their own lures. But Spike It Dip and Glow, we use that. A lot of crappie fishermen use it. We use the garlic scented stuff. There's times on the water that, you try a color combination, let's say black and chartreuse, and you lose your last one, but you got a bunch of black and white plastic. Well, you get some chartreuse Dip and Glow, you dip it in there, it's black and chartreuse. I think they got spinnerbait, markers, all different kinds of ways to change your baits. I've seen Mike Iaconelli promoting them. So definitely one of our good sponsors there. Black Speck Fishing. He's a guy that fishes crappie. He has a clothing line, Black Speck Fishing. If you see a lot of my pictures on Facebook with the blue or green hooded sun protected long sleeve shirts, that's what I'm wearing. Middle of summertime, you put that over your hat and it's keeping you cool. We had a tournament down in Arkansas. Seemed like it was 110 degrees. I was fishing with that all day. I get to the weigh and put my jersey on, and man, I'm sitting there sweating, and I'm like, man, I'm ready to put that long sleeve hooded shirt back on.
Heard that.
And then Obviously, Professional Crappie Anglers United. It's an organization that there's probably 8 of us that started. It's an organization that we're trying to help promote and teach crappie fishermen in all different aspects, from your beginners to your pros. We work with some companies to get discounts. So it's procau.com. We were fortunate enough to get the same deal that Johnny Morris and Bassmaster gets on Toyotas. So you can go to Reliable Toyota in Springfield, Missouri. You can get the same deal that they get. We got a guy in Springfield that's offering boat wraps for $1,500, truck wraps for it's 20 something hundred. We just had a guy recently go pick up his boat and truck, and he got boat and truck for the same price that it cost him to get his boat wrap last year. So, trying to put out some videos and stuff like that, teach these anglers from how to catch crappie to try to how to act more professional, or giving keys to try to get sponsorships and things like that. So it's a great organization. It costs $50 to join, but you go spend $300 with a company on the list that's given 20%. Well, you just save, put $10 in your pocket after that $50. So
definitely.
But I think that's pretty much it. Shelter Insurance, Chad Turner, he's down in Mississippi. He does insurance for I think at least 6 states. So give him a call. He doesn't do the tournament boat guiding type insurance, but he can get you in contact with somebody who does. He's not an expert on it. I don't think Shelter does that, but he'll make sure that you have the right insurance if you're a guide, and make sure that last thing you want, and people have done it, they've get in an accident guiding and their insurance like, oh, we didn't cover that, even though the agent told them, yeah, we do. So, but he does do insurance for all other products. Pro Tough Baits, if you go protoughbaits.com, it's another plastic company. He was my fishing partner last couple years. Now he's fishing with his wife. He makes some strong plastics, so if you want to be able to catch multiple crappie on one plastic, definitely check him out.
Cool.
Yeah, I think I covered them all.
Okay.
I got a couple more in the works yet, but nothing's finalized.
I hear you. Well, I think we're both in the same situation there. We do have one final question before we say thank you and have a good evening. If there's one fisherman you could spend the day in the boat with, who would it be?
Oh, man. Obviously I would have said KVD. Now I'd say probably Shaw Grigsby. Getting to hang out with him at some tournaments and fishing shows. I mean, heck, I seen him at ICAST this last year, and he was talking to he's talking to a movie actor's son that's bass fishes now. I think from the Goonies or something like that. He said, but he's talking to him, and I was waiting for him to get done and went out to shake his hand. No, he come in for a hug. So, he treats you like family. Great guy. Definitely was wanting to listen and learn on forward-facing sonar and how we go about crappie fishing. There was a young lady that was making her own baits, Breezy Bombers. He invited her to ICAST after he had met her in Ohio last year. He invited her to ICAST, took her out fishing. She's 16 or 17 years old. I mean, at the Ohio show, he sat in her booth and helped her sell products. So, I mean, definitely spending the day on the water with that guy would be great.
Yeah, I caught him at the East Tennessee Fishing Show here at Knoxville a couple weeks ago, and went to a seminar, and it was great, man. He was just cool as heck, had some funny stories. I mean, just how long has he been fishing? It's pretty cool.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's awesome to see. I mean, the stuff he's accomplished and how long he's lasted the bass world, and you're a normal guy, and that's how I try to live my life. I mean, I remember when my dad got laid off of General Motors, and we had to move out in the woods in a single wide trailer. Have two cars, one for parts and one that ran.
Yep.
So always got to remember, there's flip just like that in a switch where you can have everything and then go to having nothing. So try to treat people with kindness and share your knowledge. And Shaw Grigsby definitely does that.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
All right, sir. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate coming on. I've learned an awful lot. You've opened my eyes to a lot more things that are out there.
Yeah.
I would have never thought crappie fishing you'd have used 20-pound tests. Braid.
25. 25.
Wow.
I'm thinking, 6, 8 at the most.
Yeah, I think one of the guys at Grenada uses 40. Yeah, I think he uses 40-pound.
Wow.
So, but yeah, I mean, we use up to 17-pound fluoro. And we got maybe a half-ounce sinker and a 16-ounce jig head. But
wow.
That's pretty dang cool.
All righty, sir. Well, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys for inviting me. I definitely appreciate being on.
Yes, sir. Have a good night and take care and good luck at the championships.
All right, thank you.
All right. Wow, there's a lot of juice there, brother. A lot of juice.
Man.
Especially
That's just crazy.
Yeah, especially about the forward-facing sonar. How you can tell one fish. Yeah, that's pretty dang cool right there.
That truly is time on the water experience.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
All right, guys. Well, hey, everybody be safe. Have a great weekend. Rob and I will be back again Monday and talk to you a little bit more. Stick around. We'll with the outro, and that will be showing who we have coming up next week.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
All right.
Yeah, just keep liking, subscribing, and we appreciate everybody tunes in and had questions and comments. We appreciate you all. So
yeah, we can't do this without you guys. So keep it up.
Definitely.